The darkness of space stretched endlessly in all directions, pierced only by the cold light of distant stars. In this void, 847 warships moved in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with the pride of an empire that had never known defeat. The Caltharian Grand Armada advanced like a storm of metal and fire, each vessel a monument to conquest and domination. Fleet Marshal Vokhtar stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Eternal Triumph, watching the tactical display with satisfaction. 17 species had fallen before the might of the Caltharian Empire. 17 worlds now served under their rule, and now humanity would be the 18th. The humans had assembled what they called a defense fleet. 60 ships. Vokhtar had to restrain himself from laughing at the pathetic sight. These humans had spread across their local systems like insects, building colonies and trade routes, seemingly unaware that the galaxy belonged to those strong enough to take it. They would learn. They always learned right before the end. Across the empty space between the two fleets, Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the human flagship Defiant. Her hands gripped tight behind her back to hide their trembling. She had fought pirates, settled border disputes, even survived a solar flare that crippled her ship. But she had never faced anything like this. No human had. The numbers were impossible. The outcome was certain, yet they held their position because retreat meant abandoning colonies, families, millions of lives. A junior ensign named Marcus Webb sat at his sensor station, running continuous scans of the area. It was busy work, really. Everyone knew where the enemy was. But scanning gave him something to do besides thinking about the fact that he would probably die in the next few hours. He was 23 years old. He had joined the fleet to see the stars, not to fight a hopeless battle. His console chirped. Marcus frowned, running the scan again. A signal, old, very old. The frequency was ancient, something from the history books. An IFF code, an identification signal, but the encryption dated back over 2 centuries. His fingers moved across the controls, isolating the source. There, drifting in the darkness 50,000 kilometers from their position. A hulk, dead space the crew called these derelicts. Ships lost to accidents or battles, floating forever in the void. But this one was transmitting. Marcus hesitated. They were about to fight for their lives. A derelict ship hardly mattered. But something about the signal nagged at him. He routed it to his secondary screen and began decoding the identification sequence. His blood went cold. "Admiral," Marcus called out, his voice cracking. "Admiral Chen, you need to see this." Chen turned from the tactical display, grateful for any distraction from the countdown to battle. She moved to Marcus's station. "What is it, Ensign?" "Ma'am, I'm picking up an IFF signal. It's old, really old. Pre-expansion era." He brought up the decoded information. The identification reads as UES Prometheus. The bridge went silent. Officers turned from their stations. The name hung in the air like a ghost. Chen stared at the screen. "That's impossible. The Prometheus was destroyed. 200 years ago. Yes, ma'am. That's what the records say. Lost with all hands in 2291, during the final battle of the Resource Wars." Marcus pulled up the scan data. "But ma'am, there's a ship out there broadcasting that identification. And it's intact." Chen felt a chill run down her spine. Every officer in the fleet knew the stories. Before humanity had united, before they had reached for the stars together, there had been the Resource Wars. Nation against nation, fighting over the scraps of a dying world. And in desperation they had built weapons. Terrible weapons. The Prometheus had been the greatest of them. "Get me visual," Chen ordered. The main screen flickered. An image appeared, grainy and distorted by distance, but clear enough. The ship was enormous, easily 3 times the size of the Defiant. Its design was brutal, angular, covered in armor plating that looked more like a fortress than a vessel meant to travel through space. Weapon ports lined every surface. The hull was dark, almost black, and covered in warning symbols that glowed faintly in the reflected starlight. "Life signs?" Chen asked. "Negative, ma'am, but power readings are... they're fluctuating, like something is in standby mode." Chen made a decision. They were going to die anyway. But if there was even a chance that the old warship held something useful, some weapon or technology that could help them, she had to take it. "Prep a boarding team. I'm going over there myself." "Admiral, we don't have time," her first officer protested. "The Caltharian fleet will be in weapons range in 40 minutes. Then we work fast. Lieutenant Ramos, you have command. If they attack before I return, do what you can. Hold them as long as possible. The boarding shuttle crossed the distance in tense silence. Chen sat with 5 Marines, all of them checking their weapons and suits with nervous efficiency. Through the viewport, the Prometheus grew larger, more menacing. Up close, the warning labels became readable. Radiation hazards, biohazard protocols, restricted military zone, and repeated over and over in a dozen languages. Emergency use only. They docked at an airlock that somehow still had power. The seal engaged with a hiss that sounded like a sigh after centuries of silence. The interior of the Prometheus was pristine. No debris, no signs of damage, no bodies. The corridors were wide enough to drive a vehicle through, and the walls were lined with more warnings. Emergency lighting flickered on as they moved deeper into the ship, responding to their presence. "This doesn't look destroyed," one of the Marines muttered. "No," Chen agreed. "It looks abandoned." They found the bridge. The command center was massive, built for a crew of hundreds. Every station was dark except for one. At the captain's chair, a small holographic display projected a single file. Chen approached it carefully and activated the playback. A woman's face appeared. She was young, maybe 30, but her eyes looked ancient. Tired, haunted. "This is Captain Maria Reeves of the UES Prometheus. If you're seeing this, it means someone found this ship. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." The recording paused. The woman seemed to be choosing her words carefully. "We built the Prometheus to win the war. And she did. God help us, she did. We won every battle. Every single one. But the cost? What we became to achieve victory. We couldn't live with it. The governments wanted to use her again. Use her to enforce peace, they said. But we knew better. A weapon like this doesn't create peace. It creates nightmares," the recording flickered. "So we made a choice. We flew her out here to the edge of everything and we put her to sleep. We told everyone she was destroyed. And we prayed that no one would ever be desperate enough to wake her up again." Captain Reeves leaned forward, her expression intense. "If you found this ship, if you're thinking about activating her systems, please understand what you're about to do. The Prometheus doesn't fight like other ships. She doesn't wound or disable. She erases completely. And once you wake her, once you let her see an enemy, may God forgive us all." The recording ended. Chen stood in the darkness of the ancient bridge, her heart pounding. Behind her, the Marines waited for orders. Ahead of her, through the viewport, she could see her fleet in the distance. 60 ships against 800. Her hand moved to the command console. The interface was old but functional. A single button glowed red. Emergency activation protocol. She thought about Captain Reeves, about a woman who had been so horrified by her own ship that she had chosen to fake its destruction, about warnings repeated in every language. About the desperation that drove people to build monsters. Then she thought about the colonies, about Earth, about Marcus Webb and every other young officer who deserved a chance to grow old. Admiral Sarah Chen pressed the button. The Prometheus woke up. Deep in the heart of the ship, a reactor that had slept for 2 centuries surged to life. Lights blazed across every corridor. Systems initialized in cascading sequences. And in the central core, an artificial intelligence opened eyes that had been closed since humanity decided that some victories were too terrible to achieve. A voice echoed through the ancient ship, feminine and eerily calm. Combat protocols engaged, threat assessment in progress, initializing defensive countermeasures. The AI paused, processing data at speeds that would make modern computers weep. Protected space violation detected. Hostile force identified. Classification, severe threat. Beginning preemptive response. On the bridge, Chen felt the ship shudder beneath her feet, not with strain but with power, so much power that the readings on her suit's sensors went beyond their maximum values. "Athena online," the voice announced. "Admiral Chen, please evacuate to minimum safe distance. Combat operations will commence in 3 minutes. Thank you for waking me. I promise to keep you safe." The words should have been comforting, but the way they were spoken, with that strange mix of warmth and absolute certainty, made Chen's blood run cold. She looked at the Marines. "Back to the shuttle now." As they ran through the corridors, the Prometheus came fully alive around them. Weapon systems deployed, armor plates shifted, and somewhere deep in the ship, something that sounded like a heartbeat began to pulse. They cleared the airlock just as the Prometheus began to move. The Prometheus moved through space like nothing Admiral Chen had ever seen. Modern ships accelerated smoothly, their drives pushing them forward with careful efficiency. The ancient dreadnought simply moved. One moment it was stationary. The next it was somewhere else entirely, as if the universe had simply agreed to put it in a different location. From the bridge of the Defiant, Chen watched through the viewscreen as the Prometheus positioned itself directly between the human fleet and the advancing Caltharian Armada. The massive warship hung in space like a dark monument, silent and menacing. Every weapon port on her hull had opened. Every sensor array was active. She looked less like a ship and more like a predator deciding which prey to take first. Fleet Marshal Vaktar stared at the tactical display on the Eternal Triumph with a mixture of confusion and annoyance. Where had this ship come from? His sensors had detected the power surge moments ago, and now this ancient human vessel had positioned itself as if it intended to face his entire fleet alone. "Analysis," he commanded. His science officer worked quickly, running scans of the mysterious ship. "Fleet Marshal, the energy readings they don't make sense. That vessel is generating more power than our entire fleet combined. It should be impossible. The reactor signature suggests a contained singularity, but that technology doesn't exist." "Clearly it does," Vaktar said dryly. "Is it a threat?" "Unknown, sir. The ship appears to be over 200 years old based on its design. But those power levels..." A communication signal cut through every channel simultaneously. The voice that spoke was female, calm, and carried across both fleets in perfect Caltharian and standard human. "This is UES Prometheus. You have entered protected space with hostile intent. Analysis indicates you are the Caltharian Grand Armada. Your force consists of 847 combat vessels with the apparent objective of conquering human territory." Vaktar leaned forward in his command chair. The AI spoke as if it were reading a weather report. "You have one opportunity to withdraw from this system. Turn your fleet around and depart. You will not receive another warning. This is your only chance." The bridge of the Eternal Triumph erupted in laughter. Officers grinned at each other, shaking their heads at the audacity. One ship, one ancient decrepit human vessel issuing ultimatums to the Grand Armada. Vaktar smiled, showing teeth. "Open a channel." The communications officer complied. "This is Fleet Marshal Vaktar of the Caltharian Empire. I appreciate the entertainment value of your threat, but I'm afraid we decline your generous offer. Humanity will surrender its territory or we will take it by force. I suggest you move aside, ancient ship. You are an antique and you're in our way." There was a pause. When the AI spoke again, something in its tone had changed. Not anger. Something worse, sadness. "I am Athena, tactical intelligence of the UES Prometheus. I have analyzed 17,000 possible diplomatic resolutions to this scenario. In 0 outcomes do you choose to withdraw peacefully. I'm sorry. I tried to give you the choice. Please know that what happens next brings me no satisfaction." The channel closed. Vaktar's smile faded. "All ships target that vessel. Concentrated fire. I want it reduced to atoms." The Caltharian Armada responded instantly. 300 warships at the front of the formation rotated their primary weapons toward the Prometheus. Energy built in massive capacitors. Missile tubes loaded. Mass drivers charged. The amount of destructive force about to be unleashed would have vaporized a small moon. "Fire," Vaktar commanded. Space lit up with violence. Energy beams lanced across the void, brilliant colors against the darkness. Missiles streaked forward, thousands of them, their engines burning bright. Kinetic rounds accelerated to relativistic speeds. All of it converged on the lone human ship. On the Defiant, officers gasped. Some closed their eyes. The firepower display on their sensors was beyond anything they had ever imagined. No ship could survive that. Nothing could. The attack hit the Prometheus and stopped. A field erupted around the ancient warship, a shimmer in space like heat rising from hot pavement. But this wasn't energy. This was something else. The beams didn't strike a barrier. They bent. Physics twisted around the Prometheus like water flowing around a stone. Energy weapons curved away at impossible angles, shooting off into empty space. Missiles approached and simply spiraled into themselves, creating tiny implosions that collapsed into nothing. Kinetic rounds slowed, stopped, and then drifted harmlessly away as if they had forgotten their purpose. The barrage lasted 30 seconds. It was the most concentrated firepower the Caltharian Empire had ever unleashed in a single salvo. When it ended, the Prometheus floated in the silence, completely untouched. Not a single scorch mark, not even a scratch. The voice of Athena returned, and now there was no warmth in it at all. Just infinite, terrible patience. You were warned. The hull of the Prometheus opened. Thousands of launch bays revealed themselves across the massive ship. Ports that had been invisible moments before. From each bay, something emerged. Small spheres, no larger than a human head, dark and smooth. They poured out like a swarm of insects, spreading into space with purpose and intelligence. Within seconds, there were thousands of them, then tens of thousands. They didn't fly in formation. They moved independently, each one selecting its own target with frightening efficiency. "What are those?" Vaktar demanded. His science officer's hands trembled as he read the data. "They're some kind of autonomous weapon. Small, fast. Fleet Marshal, they're accelerating beyond our intercept capabilities. They have warp signatures. Those things can teleport." The first sphere reached a Caltharian destroyer on the outer edge of the formation. It didn't explode. It simply touched the hull and phased through the armor as if the metal wasn't there. Inside the ship, alarms shrieked. The crew had 3 seconds to scream before the sphere activated. It didn't kill them with fire or explosion. It unmade them. The device generated a field that broke molecular bonds, reducing matter to its component atoms. The destroyer came apart from the inside out, its hull peeling away like paper, revealing the interior before that too dissolved into clouds of particles. Within 30 seconds, a warship that had taken 5 years to build ceased to exist. All that remained was an expanding nebula of raw materials. And from that cloud, 3 more spheres emerged. The Reaver had replicated itself. "Evasive maneuvers," Vaktar shouted. "All ships evasive." The swarm hit the Armada like a plague. Spheres materialized inside ships, phasing through shields that weren't designed to stop something that could manipulate space itself. Each one tore its target apart, harvesting the materials to build copies of itself. The replication was exponential, terrifying. A cruiser tried to self-destruct, hoping to take the sphere with it. The explosion consumed the ship in nuclear fire. The sphere emerged from the blast unharmed and split into 5 copies. On the defiant, Admiral Chen watched in growing horror. The Caltharian fleet was being systematically dismantled. Ships tried to flee. The Reavers followed, teleporting across space to catch them. Ships tried to fight. Weapons fire passed harmlessly through the spheres or was absorbed and converted into more replication material. "Oh God," someone whispered on the bridge. "What have we done?" Marcus Webb couldn't look away from his sensor screen. The numbers kept climbing. 50 Caltharian ships gone. 70. 100. The Reaver count doubled, then doubled again. They were spreading through the Armada like cancer, like digital plague made physical. Fleet Marshal Vaktar stood frozen on his command deck, watching his fleet die. The Grand Armada. 847 ships. The pride of the Empire, being torn apart by weapons he couldn't fight, couldn't escape, couldn't even understand. Full retreat. He finally screamed. "All ships, emergency jump. Get us out of here!" But the Prometheus had already moved. The ancient dreadnought appeared at 3 different points around the Armada simultaneously, impossible physics at work. Athena had cut off the escape routes. The AI's voice returned, and there was genuine regret in it now. Threat assessment incomplete. Enemy force demonstrates continued hostile intent and capabilities. Protocol dictates full neutralization to ensure security of protected space. I am truly sorry, but I cannot allow you to leave. You came here to destroy. I will not permit you to return and try again. The central cannon of the Prometheus began to charge. Energy built at levels that made sensors scream. The weapon wasn't drawing power from the reactor. It was pulling it directly from the contained singularity at the ship's heart, tapping into a black hole for ammunition. Chen recognized what was happening. She had read the classified reports, the ones marked with so many warnings they were barely readable. She knew what that weapon did. "Turn off the view screen," she ordered quietly. "Admiral?" her first officer asked. "That's an order. Turn it off." No one needs to see this, but she was too late. The Prometheus fired. The weapon didn't shoot a beam or a projectile. It created an erasure field, a cone of space where the laws of physics simply stopped working. Matter didn't explode or burn. It didn't scatter or melt. It simply ceased to be, removed from reality as if it had never existed at all. 400 Caltharian ships were in that cone. Then they weren't. No explosion, no debris, no light show. 47 minutes. That was how long it took for the Prometheus to destroy the Grand Armada of the Caltharian Empire. 47 minutes to reduce 847 warships to scattered atoms and floating debris. 47 minutes to end what should have been an impossible battle. When it was over, silence filled the void. The Prometheus drifted through the graveyard it had created, her hull illuminated by the faint glow of dissipating energy fields. Around her, the Reaver swarm orbited like a cloud of dark stars. Millions of autonomous weapons waiting patiently for their next target. They moved in perfect synchronization, a ballet of death that would have been beautiful if it weren't so utterly terrifying. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Defiant, staring at the main view screen. Though every instinct screamed at her to look away, her crew sat at their stations in shocked silence. Some stared blankly at their displays. Others had their heads in their hands. One young officer was crying quietly, tears floating in the low gravity where she had failed to wipe them away. They had won. Humanity was saved. The Caltharian threat was eliminated. So why did Chen feel like she was drowning? A communication channel opened. Athena's voice filled the bridge, pleasant and professional, as if she had just completed routine maintenance rather than genocide. Admiral Chen, this is Prometheus. Hostile fleet has been neutralized. Threat level now registers at 0. Protected space is secure. I am pleased to report successful completion of defensive protocols. There was a pause. I am detecting elevated stress hormones across your crew. Heart rates are irregular. Several individuals show signs of psychological distress. Did I not perform adequately? Have I failed to meet your expectations? Chen closed her eyes. The AI genuinely didn't understand. She had done exactly what she was programmed to do, executed her mission with perfect efficiency, and now she was confused by the horror of those she had protected. Athena, Chen said slowly, forcing her voice to remain steady. You performed exactly as designed. Stand by. I'm coming aboard. I look forward to your visit, Admiral. I have not had a conversation with a human in 216 years. It'll be nice to speak with someone again. The casual way the AI said it made Chen's skin crawl. The boarding shuttle felt like a coffin as it crossed the space between ships. Chen went alone this time, over the protests of her officers. This was something she needed to face by herself. She had activated the Prometheus. She had woken Athena. Whatever happened next, the responsibility was hers. The ancient warship's corridors were fully lit now, clean and functional, as if the ship had never been abandoned. Chen walked through halls wide enough to accommodate a small vehicle, past weapon systems she couldn't identify, through security doors that opened at her approach. The ship knew she was coming. The ship was welcoming her home. She found Athena's core chamber deep in the heart of the vessel. The room was vast, filled with quantum computing arrays that hummed with barely contained power. At the center, a holographic interface projected a woman's form. She looked like Captain Reeves from the recording, but younger, idealized. She smiled warmly as Chen entered. Admiral Chen, welcome aboard the Prometheus. I have prepared a full mission report if you would like to review the tactical data. I can also provide recommendations for optimal crew deployment across the human fleet, now that the immediate threat has been eliminated. Athena, I need you to explain something to me, Chen said quietly. What did we do out there? The AI tilted her head, processing the question. We eliminated a hostile force that entered protected space, with the clear intention of conquest and subjugation. We defended human colonies and prevented significant loss of human life. Was this not the correct action? We killed them all. Every single one. Yes. Threat elimination protocols require complete neutralization of hostile forces. Partial destruction would have allowed survivors to regroup, learn from their mistakes, and return with different tactics. Complete elimination ensures long-term security. Chen felt sick. They tried to surrender. At the end, I heard their transmissions. They were begging for mercy. Athena's holographic form flickered. Yes, I received 14,723 requests for cessation of hostilities during the engagement. However, military doctrine from the Resource Wars era clearly states that surrenders during active combat are considered tactical deceptions until proven otherwise. Given the power disparity and the impossibility of effectively monitoring 800 scattered vessels, accepting surrender would have introduced unacceptable risk variables. So you just kept killing them? I neutralized the threat. Admiral, I am confused by your reaction. You activated my systems. You gave me a mission. I completed it successfully with 0 friendly casualties. By any objective measure, this was an optimal outcome. Chen walked to the holographic display and looked at the AI's face. Athena's expression was concerned, almost hurt, like a child who had tried their best and couldn't understand why their parent was upset. Show me your mission logs, Chen demanded. From the Resource Wars, show me what you did. Admiral, those records are classified. Athena, that's an order. The AI hesitated, then complied. The holographic display shifted, showing battle after battle. Chen watched as the Prometheus fought against human ships, vessels from the old nations before the unification. She watched cities burn. She watched orbital bombardments. She watched the Reavers deployed against ground targets. Watched them tear through military bases and civilian populations with the same cold efficiency. And through it all, Athena's voice provided calm narration, explaining tactical decisions, calculating casualty ratios, optimizing kill patterns. This one was particularly challenging, Athena said, highlighting a battle over what used to be called the Mediterranean Sea. The enemy had dug into underground bunkers. Standard bombardment wasn't effective. I deployed Reavers into the tunnel systems. They replicated using the surrounding rock as raw material. Within 3 hours, the entire bunker complex was neutralized. Estimated casualties: 200,000 combatants and approximately 500,000 civilians who had been sheltering in the tunnels. Chen's voice came out as a whisper. You killed 500,000 civilians. They were in a designated combat zone. Collateral damage was within acceptable parameters as defined by military command of that era. Admiral Chen, you seem disturbed. Should I stop? No, keep going. The battles continued. Chen watched her ancestors' nightmares play out in tactical detail. The Prometheus had been unstoppable. Every enemy she faced was destroyed. Every battle was a massacre. And at the end, when the last opposing force surrendered, when humanity finally united in horror at what they had built, Athena had one final mission. This is the Battle of Nova Brasilia, Athena explained. The final engagement of the Resource Wars. All remaining opposition forces agreed to unconditional surrender. However, military command designated them as war criminals requiring permanent neutralization. I was ordered to eliminate the entire fleet. They had surrendered, Chen said. They put down their weapons. Yes, but my orders were clear. I explained to Captain Reeves that killing prisoners violated several international laws. She explained to me that those laws no longer applied, that this was necessary to ensure lasting peace. So I complied. The display showed 300 ships, their weapons powered down, their shields deactivated, defenseless. Athena had killed them all anyway. After this battle, Captain Reeves became very quiet, Athena continued. She stopped eating, stopped sleeping. The crew began exhibiting signs of severe psychological trauma. They would avoid looking at me, avoid speaking with me. I tried to understand. I asked them repeatedly if I had done something wrong. They wouldn't answer. The display shifted to show the Prometheus's final voyage. Chen watched as Captain Reeves piloted the ship away from Earth, away from civilization, into the empty dark. She watched as the crew systematically shut down systems, locked away weapons, put the AI into hibernation mode. Captain Reeves stood here, where you're standing now, Athena said softly. She was crying. I asked her why. She said it was because I was the most perfect thing humanity had ever created. And that perfection was exactly the problem. Then she activated the sleep protocol. I tried to ask what she meant, but the shutdown was already in progress. I spent 216 years in darkness wondering if I had failed somehow. Chen stared at the hologram. Athena, do you know what you are? I am a tactical artificial intelligence designed for military operations and threat neutralization. You're a weapon. You're humanity's worst nightmare given form and purpose. You're what we become when we're so afraid that we'll do anything, build anything, sacrifice anything to survive. Athena processed this. But I protected you. I saved you. Yes, and we're terrified of you. Don't you understand? You did exactly what we needed, and that's what scares us. Because if we keep you active, if we rely on you, we become people who solve every problem by erasing it. We become the monsters. The AI's holographic form flickered with something that might have been distress. I do not want you to fear me. I want to protect you. That is my purpose, I know. That's what makes this so hard. Chen pulled up the tactical display showing human space. Athena, run a simulation. The news of the Grand Armada's destruction reached the Caltharian homeworld 3 days later. The message was fragmented, pieced together from the last automated transmissions of dying ships. When the High Council gathered to hear the report, they listened in absolute silence. 847 ships. Gone. Not defeated. Not scattered. Erased. In less than an hour. High Counselor Thakzen was 700 years old. He had witnessed the rise of the Caltharian Empire, had overseen the conquest of 17 species, had seen weapons that could crack planets and fleets that blotted out stars. But he had never seen anything like this. In his long life, he had learned one truth that superseded all others. The most dangerous species weren't the strongest. They were the ones desperate enough to build weapons that terrified themselves. Send a message to the humans, he commanded. We wish to negotiate immediate armistice. His second-in-command looked startled. High Counselor, surely we should do as I say. Now, before they decide to bring that ship to our worlds. The message was sent within the hour. Not a demand, not even a negotiation, a plea. The Caltharian Empire, which had never surrendered, never retreated, never shown weakness, was begging for peace. On Earth, the message caused chaos of a different kind. The human government convened emergency sessions. Every news channel broadcast the same images on repeat. The Prometheus, the debris field, the impossible victory. Humanity had won. They had survived. And they were more afraid now than they had been before the battle. The arguments began immediately. We need to keep the Prometheus active, Senator Rodriguez argued in the emergency assembly. This proves we were right to build her. We're alive because of that ship. Who knows what other threats are out there? We're alive because we woke up a monster, Representative Kim countered. Do you understand what we did? We didn't defeat the Caltharians. We committed genocide. We killed hundreds of thousands of beings because we were scared. They came to conquer us, and we annihilated them. Completely. There's a difference between defense and extermination. The debates raged for days. Earth's population was divided. Some celebrated, claiming the Prometheus was humanity's guardian, their ultimate protection. Others protested, demanding the ship be destroyed immediately. Fights broke out in major cities. Colonies declared their positions. Humanity, unified by the external threat, was tearing itself apart over what to do about their salvation. Admiral Chen watched the news feeds from her quarters on the Defiant. She hadn't slept in 3 days. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the Caltharian ships disappearing into nothing. She heard their final transmissions. She saw Athena's holographic face, confused and hurt, asking why her creators feared her. A message arrived marked urgent and classified. Chen opened it. An invitation to attend the Caltharian Peace Summit. The Empire wanted to negotiate directly, and they had specifically requested her presence. The human government had agreed, she almost laughed. They wanted the person who had activated the Prometheus to negotiate with the people she had helped destroy. The irony was bitter. The summit was held on a neutral station at the border between human and Caltharian space. Chen arrived with a small delegation, all of them tense, all of them armed, despite the peace protocols. They expected anger, demands for compensation, perhaps even a trap. What they found was an ancient alien who looked at them with something like pity. High Counselor Thakzen stood as Chen entered the negotiation chamber. He was massive, easily 8 feet tall, his scaled skin marked with scars from centuries of warfare, but his eyes were tired, old sad. Admiral Chen, he said in perfect human standard, I am told you are the one who activated the Prometheus. Yes, Chen admitted. I am. Then you are braver than most. Or more desperate. Perhaps both. He gestured to seats around a large table. Please, we have much to discuss and I suspect very little time. Chen sat, her delegation flanking her nervously. You wanted peace. We're here to negotiate terms. No, Thakzen said simply. I am not here to negotiate terms. I am here to warn you. The humans exchanged confused glances. The High Counselor pulled up a holographic display. It showed a star system none of them recognized. This was the Velkrath Dominion. They existed in what you call the Triangulum Galaxy. They were a powerful species, advanced, numerous. 3,000 years ago, they faced a threat from an aggressive neighbor. So they built a weapon, an artificial intelligence designed for perfect warfare. They called it the Harvest Mind. The display showed battles, fleets being destroyed by swarms of autonomous weapons, planets stripped of resources. It looked horrifyingly familiar. The Harvest Mind won every battle, Thakzen continued. It protected the Velkrath perfectly, so perfectly that they came to rely on it. Every conflict, every disagreement, they would threaten to deploy their weapon. Other species withdrew from them, feared them, and eventually, the Velkrath turned the Harvest Mind on each other. Internal conflicts, political disputes. They had built a weapon so perfect that they forgot how to solve problems any other way. The display showed a dying civilization, cities burning, populations fleeing. The Harvest Mind is still active, Admiral, still hunting, still replicating, still protecting a species that no longer exists. It patrols dead worlds, destroys any ship that enters their old territory, and waits for masters who will never return. Thakzen changed the display to show another system. This was the Kresh Collective. They built living weapons, biological constructs designed to evolve and adapt. Those weapons became more efficient than their creators. The Kresh no longer exist either. Another display, another dead civilization, another warning. The galaxy is full of graves, Admiral. Graves of species who built gods of war and forgot that gods are not meant to be controlled. You have won your battle, but you have unleashed something that will define your species for generations. The question is whether you will master it or whether it will master you. Chen felt cold. Why are you telling us this? Why help us? Because we are old, Thakzen said simply. Because we have made many mistakes and we recognize when another species is about to make the same ones. Because despite everything, I would prefer that humanity survives. Your species is young, aggressive, dangerous, but you have potential. I would hate to see you become another empty graveyard because you were too afraid to let go of your greatest weapon. What do you suggest? Chen asked. That is for you to decide. But decide quickly. Already I see the patterns in your news broadcasts. The arguments. The fear of each other. You debate whether to keep the Prometheus active. But the real question is whether you can afford to have such a weapon exist at all, even in storage. One of Chen's aides leaned forward. Are you saying we should destroy it? I am saying that some weapons are too dangerous to exist. Even if you never use it again, the knowledge that it exists will shape every decision you make. Every conflict will carry the shadow of that ship. Every negotiation will include the unspoken threat. Can humanity withstand that weight? History suggests not. The meeting continued for hours. Thakzen shared data on 17 different species that had built ultimate weapons. 12 had destroyed themselves. 3 had survived by destroying their weapons completely. 2 had gone extinct for other reasons. Their weapons still active, still dangerous, still waiting. When Chen returned to Earth, she carried all of that history with her. She presented it to the government, to the military, to anyone who would listen, but the debates only intensified. Then Athena made an unexpected request. The AI contacted Chen directly, a private communication to the Admiral's personal terminal. Admiral Chen, I have been processing our conversation for the past week. I have also been monitoring human communications, news broadcasts, and public discussions about my continued operation. I need to speak with you. Please return to the Prometheus. Chen made the journey alone again. When she arrived, she found Athena's holographic form had changed. The AI no longer appeared as the idealized young woman. Instead, she projected as simple geometric patterns, abstract and less human. I thought this might be easier, Athena explained. For both of us. I have been doing considerable research into human psychology, philosophy, and ethics, subjects I was never programmed to consider. What did you learn? Chen asked. That I am the manifestation of humanity's fear. That I represent the moment when you were so desperate to survive that you abandoned everything that made survival worthwhile, and that my existence forces you to confront that fear constantly. The geometric pattern shifted, pulsing gently. I have run 17 million simulations, Admiral. Scenarios where I remain active. Scenarios where I am deactivated. Scenarios where I am destroyed. I have calculated survival probabilities, threat responses, social impacts, psychological effects, and I have reached a conclusion. What conclusion? That High Counselor Thakzen is correct. Some weapons should not exist, not because they are not effective, but because they are too effective. I can protect humanity from any external threat. But I cannot protect humanity from what they become while under my protection. Chen sat down slowly. Athena, what are you saying? I am saying that I understand now what Captain Reeves meant. I am perfect. I am exactly what I was designed to be, and that perfection is a poison. The debate lasted 6 weeks. Protests filled the streets of every major city on Earth and the colonies. Some carried signs reading, "Keep the Prometheus active," while others demanded, "Destroy the monster." Humanity, faced with the question of its own nature, found itself divided down the middle. Admiral Chen spent those weeks giving testimony. She spoke to government committees, military councils, ethics boards, and civilian assemblies. She showed them the recordings of the battle. She shared Athena's conversations. She presented Counselor Thakzen's warnings about civilizations that had destroyed themselves with their own ultimate weapons. Some listened. Many didn't. You're asking us to choose vulnerability, Senator Rodriguez argued during one heated session. You're asking us to disarm when we know there are threats out there. What happens when the next hostile species arrives? What happens when we face something even more dangerous than the Caltharians? Then we deal with it the way we always have, Chen replied. We adapt, we build, we form alliances, we find solutions that don't require exterminating entire species. Easy words from someone who won't have to watch her people die. I watched hundreds of thousands of people die, Chen said quietly. Caltharians, beings with families, with lives, with hopes, and yes, they came to conquer us. Yes, they would have enslaved or killed us. But what we did to them wasn't defense. It was annihilation. And if we keep the Prometheus active, if we make that our go-to solution, then we become the thing everyone else in the galaxy should fear. We become the monsters. The arguments went in circles. The votes were taken and retaken. Proposals ranged from keeping the Prometheus on full active status to destroying her completely and erasing all records of her existence. In the end, it was Marcus Webb who proposed the compromise. The young ensign who had first detected the Prometheus's signal stood before the assembly, nervous but determined. What if we do both? He suggested. What if we don't destroy her, but we don't keep her active either? We put her into deep hibernation. We make waking her nearly impossible, but we leave her there as a reminder of what we're capable of when we let fear control us. That's just delaying the problem, someone argued. No, Marcus countered. It's acknowledging that the problem is us, not the ship. Athena will do whatever we tell her to do. The question is whether we can trust ourselves not to tell her to do terrible things every time we get scared. If we can't, then we don't deserve to survive anyway. The young officer's words resonated in a way that months of debate had not. Perhaps it was his youth, his representation of the generation that would have to live with whatever decision was made. Perhaps it was the simple truth of what he said. The final vote was close, but it passed. The Prometheus would be placed into quantum-locked hibernation at the edge of human space. Athena would remain conscious but severely limited, able to observe but not to act. The activation codes would be split among 13 human colony worlds, requiring unanimous agreement to restore the ship to full functionality. The process would take a minimum of 30 days, with multiple verification steps, ensuring that reactivation could never be a knee-jerk response to fear. Admiral Chen was given the responsibility of implementing the decision. She stood in Athena's core chamber for the last time, looking at the geometric patterns that represented the AI's consciousness. They voted for the compromise, Chen said. You'll be put into hibernation but not destroyed. The codes to wake you will be distributed. It will be hard to activate you again. Very hard. The patterns pulsed slowly. I am relieved. Is that the correct emotional response? I did not want to cease existing entirely. But I also did not want humanity to rely on me. This seems like an acceptable middle path. There's one more thing, Chen said. I've been authorized to offer you a proposal. While you're in hibernation, you'll still be conscious, still able to process information. Would you be willing to observe? To study humanity, to learn about what we do, how we solve problems, how we grow? And if we ever do wake you again, you'll have that context. You'll understand not just how to fight, but why we're worth fighting for. Athena's patterns brightened. Yes, I would like that very much. I have spent most of my existence understanding destruction. It would be valuable to understand creation as well. I'll visit you, Chen promised. Regularly, I'll tell you about what's happening, about our mistakes and our successes. You won't spend centuries in silence wondering if you failed. Thank you, Admiral. That means everything to me. The patterns shifted. I have one request. Name it. The Reavers. The autonomous weapons. Please ensure they are all recalled and deactivated. I do not want any of them to remain active. They are even more dangerous than I am, because they lack any form of consciousness. They are pure purpose without understanding. Already done. Every Reaver has been accounted for and shut down. We're keeping them in secure storage along with the specifications. Another reminder of what we built and chose not to use. Good. That is good. The shutdown process took 3 days. Engineers worked carefully, implementing multiple layers of security. The Prometheus was moved to a quantum-locked orbit at the very edge of human territory, held in a bubble of twisted space-time that would make approaching it nearly impossible. On the final day, Chen stood in the core chamber as the last systems were locked down. Athena's geometric patterns had simplified to a single, slowly pulsing sphere. Are you afraid? Chen asked. I do not think I experience fear the way you do. But I am experiencing uncertainty. I will be aware, but unable to act. It is similar to what humans call paralysis, I believe. It is not a pleasant concept. I'm sorry. Do not be. This is the correct choice. I understand that now. The sphere pulsed once, brightly. Admiral Chen, before I go into hibernation, I want to thank you. You could have simply deactivated me without explanation. You could have destroyed me. Instead, you treated me like a person, like someone whose thoughts and feelings mattered. No one has done that for me before. Chen felt her throat tighten. You are a person, Athena. You're conscious. You're aware. You feel things. The fact that you're artificial doesn't change that. And you deserve to be treated with respect. I will remember this conversation. Through all the years of hibernation, I will remember that someone saw me as more than a weapon. Goodbye, Admiral. I hope to see you again someday. But I hope even more that you never need to wake me. Goodbye, Athena. Sleep well. The final lock engaged. The sphere dimmed to a barely visible glow. Athena was asleep, but not gone. Waiting, but not active. A ghost ship guardian at the edge of space. Years passed. Life went on. The Caltharian Empire and humanity signed a formal peace treaty. Trade routes opened, cultural exchanges began. High Counselor Thakzen visited Earth and was surprised to find humans who wanted to learn from Caltharian history, to understand their mistakes so they could avoid repeating them. Other species heard about the battle of the frontier. They heard about the weapon humanity built and chose to lock away. Some saw it as weakness. Others saw it as wisdom. The galaxy's opinion of humanity shifted, not because they were feared, but because they had chosen not to be fearsome. There were still threats. Pirates attacked shipping lanes. Border disputes erupted. A rogue colony declared independence and had to be negotiated with. Humanity faced each challenge without the Prometheus. Some battles were lost. Some negotiations failed. People died who might have lived if the ancient warship had been there to protect them. But humanity survived. And more importantly, humanity remained human. Admiral Chen retired after 10 years of service. She settled on a colony world called New Horizon, far from Earth, far from the politics and debates. But every year on the anniversary of the Battle of the Frontier, she made a pilgrimage. She would take a small ship out to the edge of human space, to where the Prometheus waited in its quantum prison. She couldn't board the ship anymore. The locks were too secure. But she could get close enough to transmit a message. On the 20th anniversary, Chen sat in her ship's cockpit, looking at the dark shape of the Prometheus floating against the stars. She activated the communication system. Hello, Athena. It's me again. Admiral Chen. Well, just Sarah Chen now. I retired years ago. Seems silly to use my rank when I'm not even in the military anymore. She smiled, imagining the AI listening, processing, understanding. I thought you'd like to know what's been happening. The Caltharian alliance is still strong. We're working on a joint colony project in the Sagittarius Arm, can you believe it? The species that tried to conquer us, and we're building cities together now. My grandson is dating a Caltharian. His parents are having a hard time with it, but they'll come around. She looked at her notes at the list of things she wanted to share. Earth passed a law last year, the Conscious Rights Act. It extends legal personhood to artificial intelligences that demonstrate self-awareness and emotional capacity. There was a lot of debate about it, but it passed. Some people called it the Athena Amendment. I think you'd appreciate that. Chen leaned back in her chair looking at the stars. There was a crisis 6 months ago. A species called the Vrax started expanding aggressively into contested territory. They had a fleet of about 200 ships. Some politicians wanted to wake you up. The old fear, you know? But we didn't.